My name is Sophie. I'm 32 years old, currently living and working in Boston as a financial consultant. My whole life I've learned to yield, to be agreeable, to live in a way that kept the family happy. I never broke that rule, until that fateful night in New York, a night that was supposed to be nothing more than a simple engagement party between me and Daniel. The room was bathed in warm golden candlelight, a violin softly weaving through heartfelt congratulations. The moment I stepped inside, the air froze. Every gaze turned toward the big screen. A live video was playing, one I had never seen before. On the screen, my mother beamed brightly. Her voice echoed through the elegant hall. "We are so delighted to announce. The upcoming wedding will be a double ceremony, Sophie and her sister Jenna walking down the aisle together in wedding gowns." The whole room erupted in applause and cheers. I stood rooted, drained of blood. Daniel turned to me, stunned. "And Jenna?" She smiled and waved at the camera, as if she were already the star of the show. I had never agreed to any of this. Have you ever had your own family turn your most important day into someone else's stage? Have you ever been pushed aside in your own life? If you've lived through something like that, share your thoughts below. Don't forget to hit like, share this story, and subscribe to the channel to see what comes next. Because that night, I realized there are boundaries that must be drawn, even with your own blood. And what happened after that was worse than I ever imagined. I stood there beneath the flickering crystal chandelier, hundreds of eyes fixed on me, while the video kept rolling like a slap against the heavy silence in my head. It felt as if someone had yanked back the red curtain on the stage of my life, only to reveal I wasn't the star at all, just a prop to complete the scene. Daniel quietly squeezed my hand. He didn't say a word, but the fury and a shock in his eyes said everything. I forced my face to stay calm, though my palms were icy cold. Around us, people kept laughing, pulling out their phones to capture the once-in-a-lifetime moment. Jenna strutted out from backstage in a tight white dress, grinning as if she truly were the bride. My mother rushed to her, clasped her hand, hugged her, then proudly ushered her into the center of the room, raising a glass with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown me all evening. I turned my face away, trying to hide my reddening eyes. Every part of me screamed to demand answers, to shout that this was my day, my life, but I didn't allow myself that release. Not here, not in front of colleagues, not under the cameras. I smiled, the kind of smile I had practiced since childhood. The kind my parents always praised. "Sophie is such a calm, considerate daughter. She makes us proud." But inside me, something cracked. My name is Sophie, 32 years old. I live and work in Boston as a financial consultant for an investment advisory firm. Every morning, I wake at 5:30, brew coffee, run 3 miles, then walk into conference rooms filled with numbers and balance sheets. I used to think that if I lived responsibly, worked hard, supported myself, and never bothered anyone, the world would reward me with some measure of fairness. But not my family. To outsiders, we looked like the perfect model of upper middle class. A 3-story home in suburban Stamford, framed vacation photos lining the hallway, cozy birthday parties filled with cake and flowers. My mother, once a university lecturer, now retired to manage the household. My father, a tax advisor with broad connections and polished charm. I grew up in a house that looked beautiful through the window, while inside, the air felt suffocating, like a room sealed shut for years. My younger sister Jenna, 4 years my junior, was always the family's little princess. From the start, she was spoiled, favored without question. I lost count of how many birthdays of mine were cut short because Jenna had a fever. How many times I was forced to hand her the Christmas gift I loved because, "You're the older one, she's still little." Yielding became a duty, not a choice. At 14, I missed a school trip because Jenna lost her watch and blamed me for hiding it. My mother didn't ask questions. She simply said, "Just let it go. She's fragile." At 17, I begged to join a summer camp, but my father denied me, saying the family was saving to send Jenna to study art in Italy. I stayed in my sweltering Boston bedroom all summer, silent. The one time I pushed back was at 21, when I refused to let Jenna use my credit card after she bought a Chanel bag without asking. That day, my mother came to my dorm, sobbing in front of my friends, calling me selfish, heartless, unloving. After that, I never resisted again. I moved out, earned scholarships, juggled 3 jobs to finish college. I skipped holidays. I sent money home every month unprompted. In all the praises my mother told her friends about me, none mentioned what I endured. Only lines like, "Sophie is so strong, Sophie is so giving, Sophie brings honor to the family." And Jenna? She failed at 3 different jobs, dabbled as a stylist, then quit, started courses, and never finished. Each time she stumbled, my mother called me asking me to help pull her up. One winter night last year, I told Daniel I wasn't sure if I was truly considered a member of my own family. He squeezed my hand, silent for a moment, then said, "You deserve a family that loves you for who you are, and we'll build that." I thought this wedding would be the first step, something entirely mine, not borrowed, not shared. Then my mother appeared on that screen, declaring I would share my wedding day with Jenna. The applause that followed pressed down on every memory I'd buried. No. Request for permission. No chance to say no. The only question left in my mind was, when will it ever be enough? I gave up my prom dress because Jenna tore hers. I let her hold my college diploma for photos because it would mean more. I even let her attend a corporate gala in my place because she wanted to feel what success was like. And now my wedding? Daniel's eyes locked on mine, sharp and grounding. "Do you want to leave right now?" I shook my head. Number. I wasn't walking away. I looked over at Jenna, basking in cameras as though she were the true bride. My mother flitted around telling guests about this unique double wedding, proudly framing it as a modern European idea. I drew a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked toward the stage. For the first time in 32 years, my back felt straight. No one could take my voice if I refused to stay silent. And I had been silent far too long. I stepped onto the stage, the same polite smile fixed on my face like a glued-on mask. Inside, my thoughts scattered like a shattered symphony. My mother stood in the center, arm around Jenna's waist, gushing about the bond between sisters and this unprecedented family celebration. Jenna slowly turned, angling herself for the cameras in a gown I'd never seen before. One of the videographers approached me quietly. "Miss Sophie, would you like to say a few words on camera?" I turned, lost for words. My throat was bone dry. Part of me wanted to scream, to rip down the facade in front of everyone, but the other part, the one trained for 32 years to keep peace, clamped down like a warning grip. "No need," I said softly, surprised my voice still held steady. Daniel came to my side, eyes icy. "We're leaving now," he said firmly. "No one has the right to turn your day into a spectacle." "Wait," I whispered. "I need to see how far they've taken this." He stared at me, making sure I wasn't pushing myself past the breaking point. I met his gaze and gave a slight nod. He said nothing more, just stayed close, a wall of quiet strength. I walked toward my mother. She was animatedly telling Aunt Linda about Jenna's Monaco-inspired gown. When she noticed me, she smiled broadly, gripping my wrist as if she still had control. "Sweetheart, do you feel the energy? Everyone loves this idea. A double wedding will be unforgettable." I pulled my hand free gently, but firmly. I never agreed to any of this. Her expression flickered. Shock crossed her eyes, but only briefly. "Sophie, don't ruin such a beautiful occasion. You've always been the mature one. Jenna is so excited." I glanced at Jenna. She was basking among her friends, radiant as if the spotlight belonged solely to her. The dress she wore wasn't a copy. It was the exact design I had commissioned from a Boston studio. I recognized the lace at the collar, the pleats at the waist I had discussed for weeks with the designer. That dress. My voice caught. How did Jenna get it? My mother shrugged. She only borrowed it to feel the experience. You still have your main gown. That was custom, I said slowly. I never gave permission for anyone else to wear it, much less broadcast it nationwide. Her brows furrowed. Sophie, don't be so rigid. Sisters should share. She wants to live this magical moment with you. No, I answered. She's stealing it from me. I turned and walked away. Daniel followed closely. No one stopped us. But I felt the puzzled stares, the murmurs, the silent judgment of former college friends at the far table. We slipped into a quiet hallway. The glass doors closed behind us, shutting out the noisy world. Only the soft wind and the sound of my heels on the stone floor remained. Daniel halted. Sophie, this can't end with us just leaving. I leaned back against the wall, hands clenched before my chest. I know. We need to make it clear, at least to your colleagues, your friends, the groom's family. They need to hear the truth from you. I nodded slowly. But I won't give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. They've always waited for that moment to label me difficult, selfish, ungrateful. Daniel took my hand. Then let me start. I looked at him. Are you sure? Absolutely. We walked back into the hall. Daniel stepped up near the band, signaling the coordinator to stop the music. He held the microphone, his voice steady and strong. Apologies for the interruption. I need to share a few words from my heart, as the man who asked Sophie to marry me and who wants nothing more than to spend the rest of my life with her. He looked down at me, then continued. Tonight was meant to celebrate love and commitment between two people, but I've realized the woman I love is standing here no longer allowed to be herself. The air thickened. Utensils stilled. All eyes turned to Daniel and to me. We were never asked, never consulted about these sudden changes to our wedding. We need time to decide how our day will unfold, not to take orders from anyone, family or not. I saw my mother stand up, her face drained of color. Jenna stayed frozen, as if trying to process what was happening. Daniel turned to me, extending his hand. Let's go, Sophie. They need to learn how to respect you, starting with letting you walk out of here as the one in charge of your own life. I took his hand and walked slowly past the long tables. No one said a word. The only sound was the steady rhythm of my heels on the floor, reminding me that I still had a choice. And from that moment on, I would begin to use it. The morning after the engagement party, I woke in my Boston apartment, feeling as though I had just returned from a storm. I sat silently in the armchair, staring out the living room window where the early sunlight spilled across the wooden floor like a pale gold stripe. Everything around me was familiar, unchanged, yet inside me, it was the opposite. Daniel set a cup of coffee in front of me and sat across the table. The air between us wasn't tense, but heavy. He didn't push me to speak, only waited until I was ready. I opened my laptop and logged into my email. I had carefully sorted all wedding-related emails into labels: venue, menu, guest list, gown. When I typed bridal suite into the search bar, I didn't expect to see a long chain of messages I had never received. They weren't addressed to me. Every one of them came from my mother's account, sent directly to Francesca, the hotel wedding coordinator I had booked. I opened them one by one, my hands turning cold with each line. We'd like to make a few small adjustments to fit the sister celebration concept. We need 2 bridal suites close to each other for dressing and joint photos. When taking pictures, please balance the angles between the 2 brides. My eyes locked on the words 2 brides. I couldn't look away. Daniel. I called hoarsely. He stepped over, leaning over my shoulder, silent for a long time. This isn't a mistake, he finally said. They're deliberately changing everything behind your back. I nodded. They think I'll accept it, like always. But this time, I need to see everything clearly before I confront them. I opened Instagram. Jenna's account was right at the top. While I was still reeling from the engagement party, she had already posted a string of photos and videos. One short video showed Jenna twirling in a white wedding gown, tagged with number sister bride. The caption read, "Thank you, sis, for sharing this special day with me. Countdown to our fairy tale double wedding." The comments poured in with praise. "Both sisters marrying on the same day, that's adorable. Best sister of the year right here. Wish I had a sister. Like you," I scrolled, each line stabbing deeper. A former classmate had written, "Sophie is such a sport, giving up her own spotlight for her sister, so admirable." My phone rang. The screen lit up with Aunt Ellen's name. I hesitated a few seconds, then answered. "Sophie, sweetheart, I just saw Jenna's post. Is the double wedding real?" I didn't answer right away. "I thought you never liked complicated events. You always wanted something private?" "I never agreed to this, Auntie," I said slowly. A sigh came through the line. "Then why are you letting them go this far?" I gripped the phone tightly. "Because I don't want to be branded the troublemaker. But I'm collecting evidence. I need undeniable reasons to expose the truth." "Be careful, darling. I'm on your side." I hung up, but more calls followed: classmates, colleagues, old acquaintances. Some asked curiously, others questioned. A few even praised my supposed generosity for sharing my wedding with Jenna. Daniel took the phone from my hand. "You don't need to read any more of this. They don't know the truth, they're just believing Jenna's story." I looked at him, exhausted. I don't want arguments. I don't want fame. But I won't let them keep controlling the narrative with lies. "So, what do we do?" I reopened the hotel's wedding management page. The coordinator account was still shared between me and Francesca. But in the booking details, clear changes appeared. Bridal Suite 1, Sophie. Bridal Suite 2, Jenna. I pulled up old messages with Francesca, who had always been professional and respectful of my requests. I typed, "Francesca, I need confirmation whether these recent changes came from an official request by me or my fiancé. If not, please lock all outside access immediately and schedule a direct meeting. This is very important." Her reply came within minutes. "Hi, Sophie. I assumed the recent adjustments were by family consensus. I'll immediately lock outside access and wait for a direct meeting. My apologies for any misunderstanding." Daniel stood beside me, eyes focused. "I have a friend from college who works in IT security. He can check all the wedding account logins, see who accessed them and from where." I nodded. "Do that. And I'll clarify with every vendor, every friend, every provider that I'm the one responsible for this wedding. No one else." Daniel squeezed my hand. "We'll do this together. No one is taking your wedding, Sophie." I stared at the screen, the words "Bridal Suite 2, Jenna" burning like a final blow. They thought I'd stay quiet, like before. They didn't know that silence had already worn me down to the core. What was left was a strength they had never cared to see. I drove nearly 3 hours from Boston to my grandmother Eleanor's cottage on the western edge of Hartford. Her home always carried a particular scent: aged wood, dried cinnamon, and lavender hanging in the window. Though she was 82, every step she took still carried the steadiness no one could mistake. I parked, sat still behind the wheel for a few moments, heart weighed down by invisible luggage. Each visit here felt like shedding layers of dust left by demands, disappointments, and silence. The door opened before I could knock. She stood there, wearing the old olive cardigan I always saw draped over her armchair. "I figured you'd come," she said. "No questions asked." I stepped inside and sat across from her at the tea table where she usually read in the mornings. She poured peppermint tea for both of us, then settled in with eyes that carried no pressure, no judgment, only quiet patience. "I need to talk to you," I said, voice catching at the end. I'm listening. I told her everything from the engagement party, the surprise video, the social media posts, to the emails I had found and the divided bridal suites. I held nothing back, because with her, I never had to. She closed her eyes briefly when I finished, her hand resting lightly on her cup. "You're not surprised, are you?" I asked, weary. She slowly opened her eyes. "I'm sad, but not surprised. Is there something you've never told me?" I searched her wrinkled face as if for a locked door. She was silent for a few seconds. Then she placed her hand on my shoulder, warm and steady. "When your mother was young," she began, "your grandmother had two daughters, your mother and Aunt Louise. They grew up side by side, went to the same schools, even fell for the same man at one point without realizing." I blinked, stunned. I'd never heard this. "Louise's wedding happened just after your mother's breakup. That day, your mother showed up in a white gown, more polished than the bride herself. I still remember when we were taking family photos. I turned away for a second and saw your mother slip in beside the groom, saying, 'The picture will look better if both sisters are in the center.' I sat frozen, as if cold wind had blown straight through me. 'You stopped her?' I asked. I spoke up, but your grandfather said, 'Don't spoil the day.' After the wedding, Louise moved to Chicago, and they didn't speak for 30 years. Her aged eyes sharpened like glass. 'Sophie, your mother didn't invent this. It's a cycle, a habit passed down, protected under the excuse of family. But at some point, someone has to stop it.' My throat tightened. It took me a long while before I could speak. 'I'm so tired, Grandma.' She nodded. 'Because you've carried it too long.' She rose slowly, went into her bedroom, and returned with a small wooden box. She placed it on the table, her fingers brushing the lock as though she had done it hundreds of times. 'I've thought about this day,' she said, opening the box and taking out a folder. 'And I made sure you wouldn't be left with nothing.' I opened the folder and turned the first page. A copy of a property deed stared back at me. The names were clear: Eleanor M. Hill and Sophie M. Hill, co-owners. I was stunned. "You put my name on the deed?" "On your 25th birthday," she replied. "Because I knew the day would come when you needed a place no one could take away." I flipped to the next page. Another document laid out the terms of the family trust in my grandmother's name, with me as the direct heir. I wasn't just listed as a beneficiary, I was given full decision-making authority over all assets in the event of disputes with other family members. "When did you do this?" I asked. 6 years ago," she said. "After that Christmas, when your mother forced you to give up your seat for Jenna, and you left in the middle of the night." I clutched the papers tighter, my heart pounding as if awakening each vertebra that had bent under years of yielding. I never dared imagine that someone had been silently standing by me, preparing everything this whole time. "You're not alone, Sophie," she said, her thin, dry hand covering mine. "You've only been surrounded by voices that made you believe you were." I bowed my head, unable to hide the tears. Not from weakness, but from finally touching something I'd never known before: absolute trust. She stood and poured more tea. "From now on, you can use what you hold to protect what's right. No need for noise, no need for war. You only need to stop letting others write your story." I looked down at the folder again. Every page was a brick my grandmother had laid to build me an escape route. "Thank you," I whispered, resting my hand on the folder's spine as if cradling a piece of my own youth. She smiled, her eyes glowing with something deeper than pride. "Walk tall, my girl, because this time, you're the one writing the script." I returned to Boston late in the afternoon, carrying Eleanor's documents like a newly revealed map guiding me out of the labyrinth I once thought I'd never escape. The last rays of sunlight stretched across the steering wheel as I turned into the parking lot of my building, my mind already arranging each next step. I no longer felt the rage I had before. Instead, there was the stillness of someone preparing for a chess match that required patience rather than noise. Daniel was waiting for me in the kitchen, the smell of coffee mingling with the ginger from cookies he had just pulled out of the oven. When he saw me walk in, he asked only one question. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "More than okay, I finally have what I need." That evening we called Laura, my best friend from college, now a lawyer specializing in civil rights and personal assets. She came the very next morning, armed with her laptop, a stack of files, and a sharp gaze that always made me feel less lost. "Sounds like a family-scale invasion of privacy case," Laura joked lightly as she opened her computer. I laid everything out on the table, my mother's emails to the old wedding planner, Jenna's posts, the unauthorized changes on the wedding accounts, the altered hotel contract, and most importantly, the legal documents from Eleanor. Laura took meticulous notes, typing them into organized sections. "We need to create a clear timeline, who did what, when, and what the impact was. Every action crossing your boundaries needs to be documented in case we have to confront them." Daniel moved to the tech side. He contacted Greg, a former MBA classmate, now a cybersecurity specialist at a major firm in San Francisco. It took Greg less than 30 minutes to trace the entire login history of the online wedding management system I used for invitations, menus, guest lists. There were two strange IP addresses accessing the system during the same late-night hours 3 nights in a row, Greg said over video call. Both came from the same area, Greenwich, Connecticut. "Most likely your parents' house." I pressed my lips together. "Is there a way to shut it down completely?" "I already reset all passwords. Enabled two-factor authentication linked to Sophie and Daniel's phones, revoked all outside email access, and backed up all the old data in case someone tries to delete anything." Daniel put his hand on my shoulder. "Every back door is closed now." I turned to finances. Of all the leverage my parents had ever held, money was the one they relied on most. During the engagement party, my mother had repeated over and over that they would cover all the costs, highlighting their position in my life and binding me with invisible strings. I refused to carry that debt into my wedding. I opened my savings account and wired payments directly to vendors. The hotel, the printing company, the photography studio, the sound service, the decoration team. I didn't pay everything up front, but enough to keep everything running without any support from my family. Laura reviewed each contract, marking in red. "We need written confirmation emails or documents that all payments are made by Sophie or Daniel. No one else." I drafted messages to every vendor, words careful but firm. I confirm that my fiancé and I are the sole coordinators and responsible for all payments. Please do not accept any instructions or changes from anyone else. Each time I clicked send, another invisible tie loosened. Laura and I refined the timeline. February 17th, first email from my mother to Francesca about 2 brides. February 23rd, Jenna posted her dress-fitting video with #sisterbride. February 24th to 27th, 2 strange IP logins to the wedding system. February 28th, Eleanor handed me the inheritance documents. March 1st, wedding account secured with two-factor authentication. March 2nd, all payments transferred under my name. Laura looked at me over her glasses, her voice low. "You've done what many wouldn't have the courage to do, especially against family." I met her eyes without wavering. They stopped being a foundation the moment they demanded I bow my head. That afternoon, I met my new wedding planner, Tasha, a sharp, quiet woman in her 40s. She wasn't connected to my mother's circle, not part of the traditional network my family had spent years building. Her office was minimalist, a few framed wedding photos, color palettes, sketches of venue layouts. No images of double ceremonies, no matching dresses, no sisters walking the aisle together. "What do you need from me?" Tasha asked, notebook in hand. Safety, I said. And full control. She nodded. First, we redo the guest list. Remove anyone who might disrupt. Then we handle entrance security and verification. I can hire a professional team, discreet but effective. I handed her the timeline Laura had annotated. This is why nothing more can be interfered with. She glanced through it, then looked up. I've been doing this for 18 years. But you're one of the rare brides who knows exactly what she wants. I exhaled, not relief, certainty. Tasha stood and pulled a file from her shelf. From today on, every detail of this wedding is in your hands and mine. No one else. We start fresh. I nodded. I don't want a wedding that only looks beautiful. I want one that protects me. She shook my hand, firm and warm. Then we'll make it a true wedding built on love, not manipulation. I left her office at dusk, clutching my documents like a newly forged shield. Light rain fell, but I didn't rush for cover. The cool air seeped into my palms, sharpening my clarity. From now on, if anyone wanted to interfere, they'd have to break through the walls I had built with my own will. I was in Tasha's office with her, reviewing the reception layout, when my phone buzzed nonstop in my coat pocket. At first I ignored it, assuming it was an automated wedding alert. But then the screen lit up with messages from colleagues, old friends, even a few guests I'd never shared my personal number with. Did you see this morning's show? Sophie, what's going on? Your sister was crying on national television. I looked up. Tasha's eyes were questioning. Are you okay? I pulled out my phone and opened the news app. On the homepage of the most family-friendly morning program in the region, Morning with Miranda, was Jenna, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, face perfectly made up, expression straight out of a primetime drama. I just wanted to stand beside my sister on that special day, Jenna sobbed on camera. I never wanted to steal anything. I just wanted to share. But she called a lawyer. She treated the day like I was some kind of threat. The host nodded sympathetically. And she refused to let you wear a wedding dress? She even demanded my name be erased from the guest list. Jenna went on. I don't understand. After everything our family has done for her. I sat frozen. What I had worked so hard to protect in silence, the boundaries I had drawn quietly to avoid unnecessary pain, were now being smeared on morning television, painting me as cold, selfish, heartless toward my own sister. By afternoon, the hashtag number Share Your Wedding was everywhere. Edited photos of famous sisters, snide comments cloaked as harmless, spread across feeds. What's a wedding without your sister beside you? What kind of selfish sister would shut her out? Jenna deserves love. She only wanted to share happiness. Something icy slipped into my chest. Daniel sat beside me, quietly scrolling through the Twitter feed. He said nothing, but his hand pressed gently against my back, keeping me from collapsing under the wave of emotions. I'll contact legal counsel about image rights, he said in a low voice. You don't have to handle all of this alone. I shook my head. It's not about legalities, Daniel. They're using emotion to manipulate the public. And people always side with the one who looks weaker, or at least the one who cries at the right time. Laura came to my apartment that night, sweeping in like a winter gust with her briefcase and fully charged iPad. We don't fight with tears, she said. We fight with truth. She pulled up a clip that had never aired. A freelance journalist named Clara, once part of a reality television production team, now focused on exposing media manipulation, had just posted it online. In the footage, Jenna sat at a makeup table, dry-eyed, chatting with a producer. Don't let her win. You have to make people feel like you've been excluded. Audiences love the underdog story. The producer hesitated. Are you sure? She's your sister. Jenna smirked into the mirror. The closer the bond, the bigger the drama. Leave the rest to social media. Clara turned to the camera, her expression serious. We need to start asking how many so-called moving stories are really just scripts. Laura paused the video and looked at me. Do you want us to repost this clip? Daniel will ask Greg to secure everything if needed. I didn't answer right away. I remembered Jenna's face on television, her voice trembling with calculation. And I remembered my mother's eyes every time I refused one of her unreasonable demands, like I was tearing the family apart instead of protecting myself. I took a deep breath. No explanations. Just share the clip and let the public ask their own questions. Laura nodded. That's how someone in control handles it. 24 hours later, Clara's video became a hot topic online. Posts sympathizing with Jenna started being edited or deleted. A few people who had criticized me now left apologies in the comments. So it was all just acting? Sophie has been silent for far too long. I used to be a fan of Jenna. Now I feel used. A veteran television host spoke up, not naming Jenna directly, but carefully writing, "The one who cries on stage isn't always the one who truly suffers. And the one who doesn't shed tears on camera doesn't mean they're unhurt." I sat on the sofa with a cup of mint tea in my hands, reading every response in near total silence. Daniel sat beside me, asking nothing. Tasha sent me a short message. "You're doing incredibly well. I thought I'd seen every kind of family. I was wrong." Inside me there was no rush of triumph, no joy of victory. Only a warm, quiet feeling like soft yellow light spilling through the window of a house, long closed, that feeling of finally being seen. No embellishment, no disguise. I hadn't struck back. I had simply paused at the right moment, allowing others to see who was really pulling the strings. And sometimes, the truth only needs a small crack of light for the darkness to retreat on its own. That morning, I called my mother in a calm voice, as if nothing had happened. She picked up quickly, sounding cheerful and a little surprised. "Sophie, I was just about to call you. Some people from Daniel's side are asking whether Jenna might take part in the wedding in a special way. I think if you let her try the dress for a bit, things would calm down. People wouldn't gossip so much." I smiled, knowing she couldn't see it. "Then let her try. If it makes people happy, I don't mind." She was silent for a few seconds, maybe waiting for me to change my mind or press further, but I kept my tone steady. "Just for fun, Mom. Nothing more." That afternoon, Jenna came to my apartment, posting a story on social media first. Heading to my sister's place for a little wedding magic, with a heart emoji and a wedding dress icon. Daniel and I had arranged everything beforehand. He would step out for a few hours to avoid unnecessary tension, while I set up exactly the way Jenna would want the wedding gown hung in the bedroom. Soft lighting, a full-length mirror, and a faint fragrance filling the room. Jenna walked in, her eyes lighting up as if she had just stepped into a high-end showroom. "Oh my God, Sophie," she exclaimed, running her fingers over the white lace. "You really have taste. This dress, it's made for someone who's meant to be the center of attention." I stood by the door, nodding gently. "If you like it, go ahead and try it on." She didn't wait for a second invitation. In less than 10 minutes, Jenna had slipped into the dress, adjusted her hair, and added a simple headpiece I had chosen for the ceremony. "Do you have a camera?" she asked, half joking. "Take a few shots so I can post them. Just so people can imagine. Don't worry, I'll clearly tag it as just trying." I pulled out my phone. "The camera's in the other room. But if you don't mind, I'll record a video as a keepsake. We could even add it to the wedding slideshow." She laughed, stepping in front of the mirror, striking poses, spinning confidently. I recorded slowly, capturing every gesture, every glance she gave herself. Then I paused when Jenna burst out laughing. If someone didn't know better, they'd definitely think I'm the real bride. I didn't react. I just kept the frame steady. Her words hung in the quiet room, sinking into my phone's memory like a stone dropping into still water. After the recording, Jenna sent me a few photos from her phone with a draft caption, just for fun, or maybe not. She said she hadn't posted them yet, but I knew better if I didn't stay in control. They'd be everywhere in less than an hour. When Jenna left, I saw her out with a soft smile. No arguing, no harsh words. She hugged me, whispering, "Thanks for letting me try. I know you're the reasonable one." I only nodded lightly. The door closed behind her. I went back to the bedroom, exported the video, adjusted the brightness, trimming it down to the exact moment Jenna looked at the camera and half joked, half confessed. "If you didn't know, you'd think I was the bride." No commentary, no subtitles. Just one line: "When sharing becomes rehearsal." At exactly 7 p.m., I posted the clip on my personal account. No media outlets, no middlemen. I let it speak to those who had accused me of being selfish, of lacking generosity toward my sister. 10 minutes later, the first comments appeared. "Oh my God, she really thinks that. Unbelievable." And she was crying on television this morning. An hour later, Clara herself, who had exposed Jenna's staged performance on live television, reshared it. 2 hours later, the clip trended in a smaller category on social media. Support for me surged back like a rising tide. Can someone tell Jenna a wedding dress isn't a prop? She doesn't want to be a bride. She wants to be a star. Near midnight, my mother called. I didn't pick up. She called again and again. Then came the texts. "You're taking this too far. You're shaming the whole family. Why would you release that video?" I set the phone down without replying. Not because I was cold, but because I had already spoken. Every action I had taken up to this point was my answer to questions they never truly wanted answered. The next morning, Daniel woke to an email from my family. Short, direct: "If Sophie doesn't apologize and take down the post, we will not attend the wedding." He read it, then looked over at me as I sat in the armchair with my legs up on the cushion, holding a warm cup of tea. "Their absence," I said slowly, "doesn't take away the dignity of the day." He gave a quiet laugh. "Right, it only cuts out the performance." I turned to him. "And makes space for what's real." At that point, arguments, whether angry or conciliatory, mattered less than clarity. I had done what I needed to do. They had chosen how they wanted to show themselves. And now, the ones who couldn't stop themselves weren't me. I arrived at the venue 2 hours earlier than planned, just as the morning sun rose and the hall's lights hadn't yet been fully switched on. The lakeside villa was hushed, as if holding its breath before a storm everyone knew was coming, though no one knew exactly when. Tasha met me at the side gate in a light gray suit, a small earpiece in her left ear. She spoke softly as she led me through a private passage. "The security team is in place. The guest list is locked and printed with seat numbers. No one outside the list will get near the main area. If anyone makes noise or causes trouble, they'll be escorted out immediately, no explanation needed." I nodded. Each step across the stone walkway felt steadier as she confirmed each detail. I no longer felt the nerves of past days, no more knots in my stomach over worst-case scenarios. Everything was prepared. If anyone disrupted today's ceremony, that would be their choice and their consequence. Daniel joined me in the preparation room, holding me gently, asking only with his eyes, "Are you okay?" I smiled faintly. "I am, and I'm ready." We hadn't planned an extravagant wedding, but every detail was deliberate. The hall was adorned with white baby's breath and pale blue hydrangeas, the color I had chosen from the beginning for its calmness. The chairs formed a semicircle around the altar, the lighting soft, neither harsh nor dim. I changed into my gown in the bridal suite reserved only for me, with Tasha and a trusted makeup artist helping. My dress was still the very first design, simple yet elegant, with delicate lace at the neckline and silver thread embroidery hand-stitched along the back. I was fastening Eleanor's earrings when a soft knock came at the door. A security guard leaned in, whispering something to Tasha. She nodded, then turned to me. They're here. I set the second earring on the table, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't need to ask who they were. Tasha lifted her earpiece, signaling the guards at the entrance. Then she faced me again, her professional calm intact, though her eyes betrayed a hint of wariness. Your parents just arrived with Jenna. They're demanding to see the coordinator. And Jenna is wearing a white dress nearly identical to yours. I stood, picked up the other earring, clipped it in place, and said evenly, "Let them wait. No explanations." None of them are on today's list. Tasha nodded. Understood. In the hall, murmurs began rising from the entrance. My father's sharp, angry voice cut through. We agreed there would be 2 brides. This was planned for months as a double wedding. Jenna stood nearby, draped in a cheap imitation of a white gown, its fake shimmer and rough stitching plain to see, though she still forced a confident smile. I don't understand how anyone could dare to stop the bride's sister from entering the hall. My mother raised her voice, looking straight into a photographer's camera, as if continuing the performance she'd started the day before. Tasha stepped forward, holding the guest list, her voice firm. We are working only with Miss Sophie and the groom, Daniel. Every guest has an invitation and a personal confirmation code. Miss Jenna Carter is not on the official list and does not have an invitation. If she continues interfering with preparations, we will have to escort her out of the area. Some guests who had already arrived began to notice. They glanced toward the entrance, whispering to one another. A few recognized Jenna from the leaked clip, their annoyance unhidden. A middle-aged man in the 3rd row murmured to his friend, "That's her, isn't it? The girl on television," saying her sister stole her chance to wear the dress. Now it's obvious. I stood just behind the tall wooden doors, hearing every word, feeling the shift in opinion happen instantly once the truth was clear enough. Jenna turned to my mother, her lips pressed tight. They're treating me like an outsider. Just walk in. I'll handle it, my mother said, trying to pull Jenna past the guards. But 2 security staff stepped in, polite yet firm. Sorry, ma'am, you can't go further. Jenna spun toward the camera, still filming the entrance. She attempted a weak smile, but no one raised their phone to take pictures with her. Meanwhile, the music began. The string ensemble played the gentle symphony I had chosen, wordless, untheatrical, like the steady breath of a peaceful beginning. The MC stepped onto the altar. The hall lights softened. Guests sat upright in silence. Tasha nodded to the coordinator, signaling for the main doors to open. I stepped out, gripping my bouquet tightly. My gaze swept across the hall, finally meeting Daniel's eyes at the altar. The MC spoke, voice clear and full of feeling. Today, we are gathered to witness the marriage of 2 people, Sophie Marie Carter and Daniel James Roth. Just the 2 of them, in love and trust. The air seemed frozen for a second, then burst open in thunderous applause. I didn't turn back toward the door. I didn't need to see how my parents reacted, whether Jenna was still standing there, or if they had chosen to leave. I walked straight ahead, eyes fixed on Daniel, the only one truly present with me. Each step shattered the old foundations that had held me back for so long. And even though I didn't yet know what lay ahead, I knew one thing with certainty. The path I was on was mine, no longer divided, no longer requiring permission. The reception began with a burst of life. Glasses clinked, soft jazz drifted through the hall, laughter of friends and colleagues painted the room bright. I sat quietly beside Daniel, taking it all in, savoring the peace I hadn't felt in years. But I knew there was a moment I couldn't avoid, one I had prepared for long ago. After the cake was cut, the MC returned to the stage to invite speeches. I raised my hand first. The hall fell silent, a spotlight focused on me. I walked up with the small remote Tasha had placed in my hand. Thank you all for being here to witness this day of happiness for me and Daniel. I began, my voice slow but steady. There is something I need to say, not just for myself, but for everyone who has ever been forced into silence to preserve so-called harmony. I pressed the button. The large screen behind me lit up. The first image appeared, a pair of Christian Louboutin heels I had bought with 3 months of salary. Then the next, the same shoes. After Jenna borrowed them for a date, heel broken, leather scratched. The guests stirred, but I continued. The next image, a cream-colored vintage handbag I had cherished for years, now stained with lipstick and foundation. Then a cashmere sweater, stretched at the collar, faded beyond repair. For years I heard the same refrain, she's younger, just give in. Family comes first. Don't make a fuss. And I stayed silent. But that silence became a shield for others to keep taking. I clicked again. An email appeared on screen, clearly from my mother's address, to the old wedding planner. Please confirm 2 brides. Prepare 2 bridal suites. Take balanced photos so neither is overshadowed. The hall went dead silent. I could hear sharp breaths, hushed murmurs of disbelief. This is not a misunderstanding, I said. This was orchestrated, disguised with sweet words that I should share. I pressed the button one final time. The clip Clara had released earlier played, Jenna at a makeup table, calmly discussing with a producer how to fake emotions. Jenna's voice echoed, the closer, the bond, the bigger the drama. Leave the rest to social media. The air in the hall turned heavy as stone, faces paled. Aunt Ellen covered her mouth, eyes brimming. A relative from my father's side leaned toward me and whispered, "We judged you wrongly." Daniel stood below, eyes fixed on me, filled with pride and calm. I scanned the hall until my gaze stopped on my parents and Jenna. My mother sat rigid, face drained, but still trying to appear composed. My father gripped his glass so tightly his fingers shook. Jenna could no longer hold her forced smile, her eyes cast down at the table. I drew a deep breath and spoke, my voice not loud but carrying through every corner. All my life, I have given in, letting everyone believe that, because I was strong, I had to endure. But that ends today. From now on, I will not let anyone decide for me, not even those who claim to protect me. There was no applause right away, only silence. A heavy silence before the hall erupted in clapping loud, relentless, stronger than any applause I had ever heard. Some stood, applauding while their eyes stayed glued to the screen. I saw heads shaking, others casting disappointed looks toward Jenna. My mother made an effort to rise, perhaps to protest, but my father's hand held her back. She sat down, lips pressed tight. I stepped down, walking toward Daniel. He extended his hand, and I took it. The MC signaled the band. A soft, slow tune filled the hall. The spotlight dimmed, focused only on us. Daniel held me, his hand at my back, guiding me into the slow rhythm. I heard whispers in the distance, but let them fade. Warm light wrapped around us, while the darkness swallowed every unfinished word left behind. I leaned against his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat steady against mine. Every gaze, every clap, every recognition belonged to us, not to any performance. After the wedding, Daniel and I packed our bags and left Boston to begin a new life in California. It wasn't about running away, but about choosing to live near Eleanor. The little house we picked sat on a hillside outside San Jose, with green orange groves and birdsong greeting us each morning. For the first time, I woke without feeling shadows lurking behind me. On moving day, Eleanor stood waiting on the porch, cane in hand, but eyes clear and bright. She held a thick folder tied with a red ribbon, handing it to me as if it were a ceremony greater than any contract. "This is what I've kept all these years," she said, her hands trembling but her voice unwavering. "From now on, it's all yours. The house, the trust, the investments I've quietly built. You are the rightful heir." I took it, feeling as if I was holding both an inheritance and the trust of generations. Daniel squeezed my hand, whispering, "You're not just inheriting assets, you're inheriting your right to choose." I looked at her, my voice breaking. "I promise I'll use this to live fully, never letting anyone impose on me again." In the months that followed, news about my family spread widely. Clips from the wedding circulated online, not just among friends, but also among strangers who shared them as proof of the courage to draw boundaries. In contrast, my parents and Jenna became the subject of gossip. They lost credibility in the community, and many once close acquaintances began to distance themselves. The parties they once flaunted with pride now drew only a handful of attendees, most coming out of curiosity rather than affection. Jenna tried to return to social media with a few self-pitying posts, but the public was no longer on her side. People remembered the leaked clips all too well. Some even commented bluntly, "You should learn how to grow up instead of stealing your sister's spotlight." Words like that silenced Jenna, and gradually she disappeared from public view. I didn't feel triumphant, but I didn't try to save her either. Everyone must be responsible for their own choices. I had spent nearly a lifetime suffering because no one was willing to admit that. Meanwhile, I launched my own project, a financial consulting firm aimed at independent women. Clients sought me out not only for my expertise, but also for the reputation tied to my story, the woman who dared to set boundaries. They told me in meetings, "You showed us that we don't have to sacrifice endlessly just to be called considerate." Your story made me rethink how I raise my daughter. The work grew faster than I had ever imagined. Daniel supported me, taking charge of strategy while I focused on building relationships and maintaining quality. We were busy, but it was the kind of busy that mattered, not a struggle to stay upright against my family's constant pushes. That fall, we hosted a small Thanksgiving dinner in our new home. The table was covered in a beige cloth, set in the middle of a living room, bathed in warm light. Eleanor sat at the head, her hand wrapped around a cup of cinnamon tea. Around her were Daniel, Laura, Tasha, and a few close friends who had stood by me through the storms. A golden roast turkey sat at the center, surrounded by mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and a pumpkin pie I had baked myself. No one in that room had to play a role, no jealous glances, no demands for sacrifice. Daniel raised his glass, his eyes finding mine. "Today we give thanks not just for good food, but for finding a real family, the kind who don't make us shrink so they can feel bigger." Everyone lifted their glasses. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of cinnamon and vanilla fill my chest, warmth spreading through me. I turned to Eleanor, gently touching her frail hand. "I'll never forget who helped me find my light again," I said, my voice low but firm. She smiled, the kind of tender smile I will carry for the rest of my life. As the glasses clinked, the golden light above made me realize something. No one could ever steal this moment, just as no one could take back the light I had reclaimed for myself. This was the life I chose, the family I chose, and the freedom I had earned with all those years of silence. I share this story not just to close a chapter, but to ask you, if it were you, what would you do when your family pushed you into unfair choices? Have you ever sacrificed too much for the sake of keeping the peace and lost sight of your own worth? Tell me your thoughts, because every perspective is valuable. And if you want to keep hearing stories about the journey of setting boundaries, about how family can be both a refuge and the greatest test, make sure to follow this channel so you won't miss what's ahead. Because sometimes, in these everyday stories, we discover the strength to change our own lives.